Dharayedhya. Apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord called the Virat Rupa. This is the recommendation which is being given by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So, the description of this kind of meditation is found in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, where people are trying to control their senses, their breath, their postures. And in one such description, it is very nicely mentioned how a certain person, a king, he also performs this kind of austerity. It is said, Satepe mandaradronyam tapapparamadarunam urdvabahur nabo drishtihi padangushta shritan vanihi. In the valley of the Mandara hill, he began performing his austerities by standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms upward and looking towards the sky. The position was extremely difficult, but he accepted it as a means to attain perfection. So this personality, he went to the Mandara mountain, and what is recommended here? Jitasano, jitashwaso, jitasango, jitendriyaha. Controlling his senses, controlling his mind, controlling his posture. He was in this position, it is described, for 100 celestial years. One celestial year, as we know, one day of a celestial year is equal to 6 months of the earthly years. So like this, for 100 celestial years, this personality performed Jitasano, Jitashwaso, Jitasango, Jitendriyaha for 100 years, 100 celestial years. So much so that it is described that after 100 celestial years, his body became covered by an anthill. It was covered by bamboo trees, it was covered by grass. And the ants in the anthill had eaten away his skin, his flesh, his blood, and he was just merely reduced to bones. And we all know this personality was Hiranyakashipu, Jitendriya, Jitashwasa, Jitasana, everything he has performed. And after 100 celestial years, when Brahma comes to see him, Brahma is amazed. Brahma is the creator of the entire universe. He has seen all the kinds of people who are there in this universe. And when Brahma sees Hiranyakashipu's austerity, what is Brahma's response? It is very nice. So Brahma says, Vyavasayena tenena dushkarena manasvinam taponishtena bhavata jitoham diti nandana. He says, my dear son of Diti, with your great determination and austerity, you have done what is impossible for even great saintly persons. No saint in the past has done this kind of tapasya which Hiranyakashipu has done. This is Brahma's words. And because of that, what has happened? Brahma says, and thus I have certainly been conquered by you. Jitoham diti nandana. So Brahma, just because of these austerities performed by Hiranyakashipu, he says, I have been conquered by you. So this is one type of austerity which we see from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is performed by the great Hiranyakashipu, not for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but for 100 celestial years, by which he has been able to conquer Brahma. Brahma himself admits, by your austerity, I have been conquered. Now in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, there is a similar description of austerity of another personality. He has also done the same thing. Jitasano, Jitashwaso, Jitendriya, Jitasanga. And this austerity was done by our old boy Dhruva Maharaj. So what did Dhruva Maharaj do? his austerity in the Bhagavatam, we see that he first comes to Madhuvana, takes a bath in the Yamuna, and then he observes fasting in the night. And then for the first month, it is described in the Bhagavatam that every third day he was only taking fruits and berries for 1 month. So once in 3 days, some fruits and berries he was taking. In the second month, he was eating only for once in 6 days. But that too, he was taking only some grass and leaves. He stopped taking fruits also. And in the third month, he reduced it even further. He was taking only water, that too only once in 9 days. And then in the fourth month, he stopped taking even water and he started controlling his breath. And he was inhaling air, it is described, only once in 12 days. And by the fifth month, he had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was standing just on one leg. So this Dhruva Maharaj performed for how many months? 6 months. So on one side, Dhruva Maharaj, he performed this meditation for 6 months. On the other side, Hiranyakashipu, he performed meditation which was even more severe for a period of 100 celestial years. But the effect of this was completely different. The effect of the meditation that Dhruva Maharaj performed was completely different from the effect of the meditation that Hiranyakashipu performed. So we all know, after Hiranyakashipu performed his austerities, Brahma comes to him and says, I have been conquered by you. And after this, when Hiranyakashipu sees Brahma, he asks him for several benedictions. And he receives these benedictions by which he becomes so powerful that he is able to conquer the whole world and is able to enjoy all types of sense gratification. But the Srimad-Bhagavatam describes that even after enjoying this kind of sense gratification, what was the state of Hiranyakashipu? Bhagavatam says, Sa ittam nirjana kakub ekarad vishayan priyan yathopajosam bunjano natrupyaj ajitendriyaha. His status was natrupyed. He was not at all satisfied. The translation is, in the Bhagavatam, in spite of achieving the power to control in all directions and enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling his senses, he remained his servant, ajitendriyaha. So Hiranyakashipu, he performed severe austerities, jitashvasaha, jitendriyaha, jitasana, jitasanga, everything he conquered, and by this he was able to conquer Brahma also. But even after this, the Bhagavatam describes he was ajitendriyaha. For 100 celestial years, he conquered his senses, he conquered his mind, he conquered his sitting posture, he conquered Brahma also. But what was the result of that? He was natruptaha ajitendriyaha. He was unsatisfied because he had not conquered his senses. So he performed a type of meditation which required him to control his senses, and the result of that meditation was he is unable to control his senses. But when Dhruva Maharaj meditated, not for 100 celestial years, not as intensely as Hiranyakashipu, what was the result of that? Lord Narayana himself appeared before him. And even though Dhruva Maharaj meditated with so many material desires, his meditation was not a result of understanding what the absolute truth is or what the goal of life is. His meditation was completely motivated by a material desire. that I want to have a kingdom bigger than my father's. It was not a pure desire. But still, because he was meditating on the Lord, and the Lord appeared, when he followed the instructions given by Narada, what was the result? Dhruva Maharaj says, Sthana bilashi tapasi thistoham tam praptavan deva muhunindra guhyam kachan vichinvan api divya ratnam swamin kritartosmi varam nayache. By seeing the Lord, he becomes purified of all his material desires. He is completely satisfied simply by darshan of the Lord, that he forgets all his material desires. So that is the point being brought about in this verse, that what is more important, Shri Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. What is more important in the process of yoga is not the postures or the renunciation or the control of senses, but what is more important is the object of our meditation. Many times we see in India, people undertake so many austerities. 40 days, they don't touch meat, they don't touch non-veg, they take bath in cold water, they sleep only on the floor, they refrain from sex life. Every day morning they wake up at 4 o'clock, just like we also wake up for Mangalarti. They also take bath in cold water, they go to the nearest temple. 40 days, very, very perfectly they follow all this. Then they go to the temple, they have darshan after 40 days. Immediately after that 40 days period is over, they have had darshan. In the same place where they go for darshan, immediately they feel as though some big relief they are experiencing, and they start all sorts of illicit activities. Drinking, meat eating, everything. Immediately after that 40 days period is over. So they are practicing all these austerities, they are controlling these senses. But still, they are unable to sustain. They are not satisfied. They are still ajitendriyaha. Why? Because their object of meditation, their object of sacrifice is not Vishnu. That is why even Parikshit Maharaj's question, he is not asking Shukadeva Goswami how I should control my senses. In what posture should I sit and meditate? I have only 7 days. In what position should I sit? He is asking, on what should I fix my mind upon? Shri Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. This is the question which Parikshit Maharaj is asking. So, if this proper goal is not there in our meditation, then this exercise of meditation is a futile effort. And this applies not only to meditation, it applies to anything that we do. Swanushthitasya dharmasya vishwaksena katasuyah na utpadayed yadi ratim shrama evahi kevalam. Hiranyakashipu meditated very, very perfectly. So much so that Brahma is saying, I have never seen such an austerity being performed by even the greatest of saintly persons. Swanushthitasya dharmasya. So perfectly he has done his duty. So perfectly he has done his duty. But still, what has happened? He is atriptaha ajitendriyaha. He is not satisfied. So all his meditation is shrama eva hi kevalam. Because the center point, the goal of such meditation is not Vishnu, is not Narayana. But small boy Dhruva Maharaj, he has meditated only for 6 months. He is experiencing complete satisfaction and happiness. Why? Because his goal of meditation is Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayana. So now somebody may ask that how is it that even though he had material desires, his motivation was not pure, but still how he could attain success? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. He says, the Vedas are full of the three gunas, and our goal is to rise above the three gunas. We have to become gunatita. And what is the process of becoming gunatita? By associating with personalities who are beyond the three gunas. So Krishna is above the three gunas. Krishna's devotees are above the three gunas. And when we gain by their association, slowly we are also able to transcend the three gunas. In Hiranyakashipu's meditation, unfortunately, there was no such association. He was not able to associate with the Lord. He was neither able to associate with the Lord's devotees. Therefore, even though he had perfected his meditation, he was not able to attain the ultimate goal of such a meditation. But in case of Dhruva Maharaj, because he was able to associate with Narada, and Narada knew, even though this fellow has got some material desires, let me somehow fix his mind on the Lord so that he becomes purified of even his material desires. Dhruva Maharaj, in a very short time, he was able to be completely satisfied and purified of his material desires. So, the entire process of Krishna consciousness is how somehow or the other we can fix our mind on the Lord. This is the goal. So even in this verse and in this purport, this is what is being explained as to what actually is the goal of yoga. Why this yoga is performed. Prabhupada is explaining that the purpose of fixing the mind upon the Supreme and controlling of the sitting posture and breathing senses are prescribed in order to mold the character of the gross materialist. It is to mold the character of the gross materialist. What is the character of a materialist? He is always thinking in terms of I and mine. Correct? Janasya mohoyam aham mameti. This is the definition of a materialist. He always thinks, I am this body and everything that I see is for my sense enjoyment. This is the character of a materialist. Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. So, reformation of this character or molding this character means one has to come out of this conception of I and mine. That I am this body and everything that I see is for my enjoyment. The purpose of meditation is to make one come out of this conception. So what is being described here? The process being described is apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord called the Virat Rupa. Now, one of the things with a completely material absorbed mind is they cannot think of something beyond this material world. If somebody is so materially absorbed, his entire life he has only been into material enjoyment and he is only identifying himself with material objects. If you tell him that God is a person beyond this material nature, he has got a spiritual form, he has got spiritual qualities, he will not be able to understand. So therefore, instead of asking him to fix his mind on the Supreme Lord, who is completely transcendental, which is not possible for a person of completely material conceived mind, what is being recommended here is, okay, you fix your mind on all these material things that you are seeing around you. You are seeing mountains, you are seeing the sky, you are seeing the water, you are seeing different qualities in different people. Okay, you see all of this, but consider all of this to be the person, the body of the Supreme Lord, the gross body of the Lord, which is possible for a materialist. He sees, oh, this mountain, this is the bone, these are the bones of the Lord, these rivers, these are the veins of the Lord. So all these descriptions we will see in the ensuing verses. How Shukadeva Goswami is recommending Parikshit Maharaj how a materially absorbed mind has to meditate on the gross form of the Lord. So now somebody may ask that, But this, how is this very different from contemplating on the sense objects? These are also sense objects only. When I am seeing material nature, these are all sense objects. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when we contemplate on sense objects, then what happens? Slowly attachment for them develops. After attachment, what happens? Either greed or anger comes, and from anger, lust, and then we develop anger and we fall down into the material pool. But the process recommended here also is on meditation on these sense objects only. But the reverse of this is likely to happen, which is purification of consciousness. So how is an opposite effect happening by contemplating on the same sense objects? This question may arise in one person's mind. So the answer to that is that in this kind of meditation, when we are meditating on these material objects, we are not meditating on it with a desire for sense gratification. We are seeing that in connection with the Lord. We are seeing, oh, this river, these are the veins of the Lord. This mountain, these are the bones of the Lord. So because we are slowly beginning to connect even material objects with the Lord, what is happening? Instead of our consciousness degrading to lust and falling down into the material pool, we are making progress towards transcending the gunas. Same material objects are there, but the vision with which we are seeing them is different. Instead of seeing the material objects with a view for sense gratification, we are seeing the material objects as connected to the Lord. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhumi rapo nalo vayu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankaram iti yamme bhinna prakriti rashtada. So the first step in God realization is not that we are able to realize Krishna's transcendental form. No, the first step in God realization is seeing this material energy as the energy of the Lord. This is the molding of the character which Prabhupada is talking about in this verse. Or fixing, or unless such materialists are able to cleanse the materially absorbed mind, it is impossible for them to concentrate upon thoughts of transcendence. So the process of cleansing the materially absorbed mind begins by first accepting that these inferior energies or the separated energies are not for my sense gratification, but it is for, these are all energies belonging to the Lord. So the first step of self-realization is in understanding that all these energies are coming from a superior source. And therefore, slowly one progresses that I have to now use these energies in the service of this superior source. So that's why Srimad-Bhagavatam is a step-by-step process of self-realization. It recognizes that the materially absorbed mind cannot conceive of a transcendental personality as God. Therefore, it is telling that at least mold the character. Instead of thinking in terms of enjoying these gross material sense objects, acknowledge that these material sense objects are the energy of the source of these material objects. So therefore, Prabhupada also says towards the end of this purport that as soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of the transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step, and gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him. So when a person understands that these things which he sees are only instrumental manifestations of the Supreme Lord, then gradually, because he has controlled his tendencies for sense gratification, he advances to the next step, and gradually the full stage of self-realization becomes possible for such a person. So this is the step-by-step process which is recommended here. So this sort of meditation where one doesn't have an understanding of who God is, but he accepts, yes, there is a superior source from which all these things are emanating, is much better than any meditation process which is completely godless, where there is no object of worship on the Lord. Many people, they do meditation thinking that they are God, they become one with God. All these meditation processes are much more inferior because they don't have a goal of meditation. So even though one is not able to meditate upon Krishna, even if somebody is meditating on the Virat Rupa of the Lord, he makes much more progress than a person who is meditating on something impersonal, or he's thinking himself to be God, or he's meditating on something void. Because he's acknowledging that the Virat Rupa is nothing but the gross form of the Lord, and therefore he's gradually progressing towards transcendence. So what we understand is that the object of meditation is much more important than all these preliminary processes of meditation. Just like Hiranyakashipu, even though he conquered all his senses, he conquered the sitting posture, he conquered the breath air, his meditation was a total failure. It was ajitendriyaha and he was atriptaha. But even though Dhruva Maharaj, his meditation was also driven by material motivation, because the object of his meditation was Lord Vishnu, he attained perfection of that meditation. So Prabhupada also, he has given us a nice process by which we are able to meditate 24/7 on Krishna. Even though we are unable to control our senses, we have a process by which all the desires of our senses, all our desires of the mind can be engaged, can be purified simply by making Krishna the center of all our activities. As Krishna says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So when we mold all our activities from morning to evening in such a way that the center of all these activities is Krishna, simply by this process we become purified of all material contamination. We have a desire to eat very nice food, we have prasadam. We like to hear good music, we listen to kirtans. We have some gunas, some liking for certain engagements. We use such gunas, such abilities in serving Krishna, we become purified. So because we are given an opportunity to make Krishna the center of all our activities, we are also very quickly being purified of all material contamination. Sometimes people say, maybe I heard some of my relatives used to say, maybe you should practice your singing much more so that the kirtan is more melodious. They are more attracted to the way in which an activity is performed rather than the object of that activity. They will go and listen to a nice Carnatic concert where the singer is singing so beautifully. They will like to go to katha of different kinds of katha where the speaker is speaking very gloriously. And they are attached to the manner in which these things are done rather than what is the object for which these things are done. They are not concerned whether they are glorifying Krishna or somebody else. They are not concerned whether the song is glorifying Krishna or somebody else. They are only concerned with how nice and how pleasing it is for the senses. And therefore, even though they are so culturally, you could say absorbed, they are so much fixed to tradition, they are so much fixed to these practices, the purification of heart is not happening. Why? Because the center of these activities is not Krishna. But in our case, even though we may not be the greatest of singers, we might not be so proficient in chanting mantras like some of those learned scholars, even though we may not be the best managers in terms of managing an organization, like how outside people are so professionally able to manage, we are assured of success because the center of our activities is Krishna. Prabhupada, this all of us know, once very famously when devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what is it that pleases you the most? So everybody thought Prabhupada would say, if you distribute my books, I'll be very pleased. Or somebody said that, so they thought maybe if we construct more temples or if we make more devotees, Prabhupada said we will be very pleased. Prabhupada said, what was the answer Prabhupada gave? He said, if you remember Krishna always, what pleases you the most? Then they asked, he said, if you remember Krishna always, that pleases me the most. So this is the sum and substance of the yoga process. Not only the yoga process, the sum and substance of anything that a person does is keeping Krishna in the center. This is the sum and substance of everything. Swanushthitasya dharmasya vishwaksena katasuyah na utpadayet ratim yadi shrama hi kevalam. If Krishna is not the center, anything that we do, it is only a wasted effort. Varnashrama charavata pumsa. What is the verse? Varnashrama charavata pumsa. Sorry? Purushena parapuman. Vishnur aradyate panta nanyat astosakaram. So the purpose of Varnashrama Dharma is also satisfaction of Vishnu. So if the center of all our activities is not the Supreme Lord, then whatever we may do Jitasanga, Jitendriya, Jitashwasa, but in the end we will be Atriptaha and Atindriyaha. We will be not satisfied and we will lose control of our senses and we will fall down into the material pool. But simply without even performing these severe austerities, whatever activities we are doing, if we simply keep Krishna in the center, we are assured of all success. Prabhupada used to narrate the story of this poor Brahmana. This poor Brahmana, he was not even a Brahmana, I think. He was just a villager. Every day he used to go and listen to some katha in the village. And in that katha he heard that even if you don't have resources to satisfy the Lord, simply mentally you offer whatever you can to the Lord and the Lord accepts it. And this person, when he heard this, he was so encouraged, so enthused, that every day he said, I will give nice abhishekam to the Lord, I will offer nice foodstuff to the Lord. And even though he was such a poor person, every day he used to meditate as though he's bringing water in golden jugs from all the rivers and he's bathing the Lord. After bathing the Lord, he's nicely decorating, offering different kinds of flowers, sandalwood paste. And then he's offering different kinds of foodstuff, he's cooking and offering. And one such day, he was offering sweet rice to the Lord. And before offering that sweet rice, he just wanted to check the temperature. He wanted to check whether it is too hot, so he wanted it to cool down and then offer it to the Lord. And so when he, in this meditation, when he just was checking the sweet rice, he found it to be too hot. And then suddenly he opened his eyes and he saw really his hand had been burnt. And then seeing this, Lord Narayana and Lakshmi, they were seeing this from Vaikuntha, and Lakshmi saw Narayana smiling to himself. And then Lakshmi said, why are you smiling? And then Narayana said, look at this devotee, how earnestly he is meditating on me, and really his finger has gone burnt when he is touching that rice in his meditation. And immediately Narayana sends an airplane and brings this Brahmana back to Vaikuntha. So you see, this Brahmana, he is not performing some big austerity, he is not controlling his senses, he is not controlling his breath, and he is not having any resources to worship the Lord, but simply because the object of his meditation is the Lord, he is able to attain perfection. So we should be so grateful to Srila Prabhupada, who presented this central theme of all the Vedic literature to be this one single point of meditation on Krishna. Many times people think, even we also used to think, that this chanting of Hare Krishna and all is some simple method for people who cannot do this big meditation. We are doing Gayatri, we are doing Sandhya Vandanam, we do so many Yajna, Homas at home, we are performing Ashtanga Yoga exercises, we are performing our duties and all perfectly. This Hare Krishna and all is a very elementary thing for people who cannot do all this. But no, this is the central theme of all the Vedas. Vedaishcha sarvair ahameva vedya vedantakrit veda videha chaham. And in all of Prabhupada's lectures, talks and books, this central theme Prabhupada repeatedly brings out. He repeatedly criticizes people who are performing yoga without Krishna in the center, who are performing so many activities without Krishna in the center, that sometimes people think that we are fanatics. Every time you say only Krishna, 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 you don't have anything else to do. Yes, because only if we are fanatically attached to Krishna, all our activities attain perfection. Otherwise, we will also end up like Hiranyakashipu, Jitendriyaha and Atruptaha. So, what Shukadev Goswami is recommending here is ultimately we have to mana sandhare diya bhagavato rupe. Our mind with our intelligence, somehow or the other, we have to bring it on the Lord and thus attain perfection in all our activities. So we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki.